Not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it will cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Inner Wealth Podcast with Dave and Liz.
Yes, yes. Let's go. Inner wealth.
What up, though?
What up, doe?
Man, I've been since probably around 1999. I saw this movie. This
Mhm.
movie had changed my life from the
Yes.
moment that I saw this movie.
Right.
And that movie is The Matrix.
The Matrix. Do.
And once I saw that movie, man, I really, going down the rabbit holes of being in the Christian world, self-help world, wellness world, I saw one thing. The Matrix, the movie, connected all of them.
Mm.
And what we talk about most of is trauma.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about awakening from the trauma matrix.
Yes.
And we got a very special guest here to be able to help us break down and dissect the matrix.
Yes, we
That's
do.
Mr. Billy Carson, Forbidden Knowledge.
Forbidden knowledge. AKA Morpheus.
Is it really forbidden anymore if we talking about it?
No.
I guess it was forbidden, but now we broke that barrier, right?
Well, the key behind forbidden knowledge is when you look up what forbidden means, it means that it's not unaccessible knowledge, but that it's actually just hard to find knowledge. And it's so fractalized and so displaced that sometimes it's hard to bring all the pieces together and make a picture.
Right.
So what I've been able to do is go here, go there, go all these different locations and capture pieces of information from different sources and paint a better picture for people.
Mm.
That's
Dope.
deep.
Yeah, it's deep and dope.
So we're gonna have a lot of deep moments of that on this podcast. So if you one thing about what we do is it's not about what we say.
Right.
It's about what you feel
Yes.
coming from us.
Exactly.
And we can talk all over each other.
Yes,
and
we can and we
right?
do. But
And
that's
we do.
how we flow.
That's
just
how we flow.
talk.
And if
Yeah.
you don't resonate with that,
Hey,
you
it's
don't
okay.
vibe. If you don't vibe with that, then
That's okay.
it just ain't for you. But today we're gonna dive deep into the rabbit hole. Go
Yeah.
down deep into the rabbit hole. So let's talk about just the beginning of the Matrix. And again, spoiler alert: if you've never seen this movie,
No.
you probably want to turn this off
I
and
know.
then go watch the Matrix first and then come back.
Right.
But the truth is, many people who've seen the movie have never seen the movie.
That's right.
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about seeing the movie,
Hidden meanings.
right? And so one of the things that popped up in the first few scenes was Neo, basically the white rabbit. You remember that scene when the
Yeah.
woman came with the white rabbit on the tattoo and it said "Follow the white rabbit" on this computer screen?
Yeah.
And immediately, what I thought about when I saw that was, what you seek is seeking you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah.
So these people who are listening to the Inner Wealth podcast and things like yourself, they're seekers. And
Yeah.
that's why Inception, we call them people seekers,
Seekers,
because you
yep.
literally have to seek this information out. We
Yeah.
can't tell you.
Mm-mm.
Has to be seen,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what Morpheus told Neo too within the first,
Yeah.
first part of the movie, is that when he was talking about the Matrix and waking up from it, he said, unfortunately,
Mhm.
I can't tell you what the Matrix is. I have to show you.
That's right.
You have to see it for
You
yourself.
have to see
Yeah.
it for yourself. Exactly. You don't understand the meaning of something until you really feel that meaning. Like feel it inside you, or else right over your head.
Well, that's part of our journey.
Yeah.
Me and yours. Like, I told you stuff years ago.
Yes, you did.
And even in the therapy world,
Mm.
a therapist's job is not to tell you. Their job is not to do all the talking.
Oh, they're just mirroring you.
Mhm.
They're mirroring
They're
you.
supposed to listen. And
Mhm.
if you have a therapist who's doing more talking than listening, then
Yeah.
you got to fire your
Yeah.
therapist.
That's right.
Right.
If you know, and we had this conversation with Dr. Strong, who's a psychiatrist, black psychiatrist, and we had it during his weekend here of cooperation versus competition.
Mm.
And he said, I have to tell my clients, I'm not your friend.
Mhm.
Because people think that their therapist is their friend.
Right.
That's not their job. Their
No.
job is to allow your unconsciousness
To
for
become
you to
conscious.
see your unconsciousness.
Yes.
Exactly.
So why is it that way? Why is it that we can't tell someone? Why is it that we have to see it for
It
ourselves?
comes down to an old saying, which I've slightly modified. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink because you're thirsty. And so someone has to become thirsty to become awake, and someone has to become thirsty to take a journey to inner space and expose the shadows inside of their own selves. They have
Mhm.
to be willing to see the dark side of themselves, or see where they're falling into the wrong places or making the wrong decisions. You look at an alcoholic, or a person addicted to drugs, right? They can go to all the classes that they want to try to get out of that, but if they don't first say, "Look, I admit I have a problem. This is just
Mhm.
something
Right.
wrong with me, that
Mhm.
I'm addicted to this particular substance." If they don't do that, they'll never, ever, ever be able to get clean.
Right.
And so it's the same thing. You can just relate that to life. If you can't admit that the information that I've been programmed to know and process my entire life is actually most likely a lot skewed, and I really need to take a deeper dive and look at myself and my knowledge and what I do know, research and dig much deeper into who I
Yeah.
am, what's going on inside of me,
Mm.
so I could begin to access and make the proper changes.
Right.
That man, look at this. That first part of the movie, like what you said,
hmm
everything you just said in AA meetings, right?
Yeah.
They have to acknowledge that they have an issue,
hmm
right? That's the awareness. But you talked about being able to see our light and our dark.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who think that they're doing the work,
Mhm.
if you're not uncomfortable, if your mind has not been blown,
hmm
if you don't feel sadness,
Mhm.
grief,
Yeah.
because when you first break through the matrix
hmm
and seeing all that, what you
Mm.
thought was true,
Yeah.
and that be shattered,
There's a lot of grief in that.
Yeah.
you're not awakening.
You're
Right.
not.
All
Mm-mm.
this I'm woke.
hmm
What are you woke to?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not talking about just seeing the misery in the world.
hmm
Mm.
You have to see the misery and how you play a part to that misery.
Correct.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because we all play a part to that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
You can't be a proponent of talking about mental health,
hmm
but sell trauma.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I try to tell people that all the time, especially on social media in their conscious community. There's a lot of accounts that are promoting this higher level of conscious thought, but they're consistently putting the fear-based
Mm,
Mm.
information out.
yeah.
Now there has to be a balance, as with anything on this planet.
Mm.
You have to have balance, and so if you don't have the balance, you continue to push the fear porn on them, and what's
Fear
happening
porn.
is,
Yeah.
the fear porn, and
Fear
these people
porn.
become addicted to
That's
fear
deep.
porn.
Yeah. I
Very
call it
addicted.
stimulus porn,
Yeah.
but that's a sub
Yeah.
a category of it. Because
Yes.
because we just in one big stimulation response loop.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the stimulation that you're
Yeah.
interested in.
Right.
The fear, the
Mhm.
news. My
Right.
mom never let me watch the news growing up
Mm.
Mm.
because what did they see? I would see us being shot. I would see us
Mhm.
Right.
misery. I would see us ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we're any of those things.
Right.
It's just a cool way to program.
Mhm.
And everything we're going to talk about on
But
this
you-
is programming.
That's
Right,
right.
exactly. But you become physically addicted to that type of stuff too. Like your
Mhm.
body releases chemicals that,
Mhm.
and then you become addicted to those chemicals. So now you're
Yeah.
searching it out. And now that becomes your lens
Mhm.
of
Mm.
life, of the
Right.
world, fear.
So what happens is people start following some accounts, and they start thinking, I'm getting more woke because this account is exposing all this negativity, but there's no balance on that particular account. So what
Mm.
happens is you just fall deeper into a low frequency vibration of fear, and you're still in flight and fright mode. And you're still, building up trauma.
Mm.
And if anything, you're adding so much more psychological trauma to yourself that you're
Yeah.
becoming even more and more sick mentally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I went down that rabbit hole.
I think I've been there too.
Yeah, we've all
Mm.
been there.
Yeah.
I call it catastrophism.
Mm.
Right. And that's go to that part in the movie. The first part, the other part when Neo woke up was waking up when he first came out the Matrix. First of all, Neo, man, he trusted Morpheus like
Yeah.
really heavily. He's like, yeah, put this thing on your arm, man.
I
Like,
know.
yeah, like
He
he
getting hooked up
wasn't
to machines. I'll be like,
he was
what are you doing?
frozen.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't
Super
tripping out of nothing.
frozen.
He just
Right.
like, oh,
I
what's
know.
that? Started
Right.
looking at himself in the mirror. I'm like, I would have been
know.
like, I would have tasted that pill. Like, man,
I
what's
know.
this, man? What is this? What's in here, bro?
I know. Asking way more questions.
Because
He
you
was
know
just like,
what was one man who the coat where they drank the Kool-Aid and they all died. I think it was
Oh,
Jim
Oh,
Jones,
man.
Jim
right?
Jones, the
Yeah.
Kool-Aid that everybody drank it and died. Yes, that's
So
right.
so even though Morpheus played this role,
hmm
he was just trying to show him himself.
Yeah,
If you're following a leader
yeah.
and they don't point you back to
You,
yourself,
right.
hmm
if they don't
They're not.
point you back to your own power,
Yep.
Mm,
if they disconnect you and it's always something outside of you greater
right.
than you, I
Right.
don't care.
It's
I
wrong.
don't care what religion.
Yeah.
They all, and you can probably tell me more than anybody, right? You
Mhm.
go through all the religions.
hmm
Is that the same message to go inward?
It's always go inward, and people who are in these religions even try to skew it and take it back towards no, it's on the outside.
Mm.
Mm,
But when you read the text that they're supposed to be studying, it all says, and I mean every single one, it says the same thing. The power is inside of you. The
mm,
truth is inside of you. Heaven is inside of you. I mean, everything
Yeah.
is always inside. The light is inside of you.
mm,
And no matter how far back you go, all the way back even to the Emerald Tablets, 36,000, 40,000 years ago, it is the light is in you. And,
Mhm.
that's what it's all about. But for some weird reason, the programming on the outside is so strong, it has taken everyone, and even though they've gone over that information, they've now flipped it to, oh, I'm waiting for some external help or
Right.
assistance,
mm,
not realizing that the power truly is already inside of them.
right.
Yeah, man.
Disconnects you from your power, man.
Yeah.
It's,
So if you got a leader and that's what's happening, then
you're following the wrong
you
one.
you got to do what Morpheus, what Neo did on this first series or
Mhm.
scene when he woke up. He said, "Why do my eyes hurt?"
Exactly.
Mhm.
And Morpheus told him, "Cause you never used them before."
Mm.
Exactly. I try to tell people I have two eyes to see and one eye to look. And so that's the third eye, looking through the pineal gland, through the spiritual antenna, and realizing and
Mhm.
recognizing that the eyes that you have now are looking at a complete illusion. You
Mhm.
haven't really seen anything yet.
Right, because it's not your eyes that see, right? It's your
Exactly.
brain.
Your
Exactly.
brain,
So
right.
from a neuro physical standpoint, you can break that down neurologically. Like,
Yeah.
oh, our eyes are just they're not projectors, right?
Right. The eyes are just data collection tools, and so they're friends of the brain. So your brain is encased in complete darkness. It doesn't know anything going on outside. And so what the brain says is to its friends, look, hearing, smell, sight, touch, vision, go out there and collect me some information. So the friends
Mm.
themselves, the eyes go out, the eyes collect photons and data is inside the photons, but the
Mm.
eyes can't decipher that information. They
Mhm.
said, let me send this back to my homeboy, let me send it back to the brain. The brain takes that information and sorts it all out and then projects a hologram as to what's going on out there. And then you navigate through the matrix based off of that hologram.
Yo, if y'all heads are
I
is
know.
being blown out there, like take a pause.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be something you need to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Run that back.
You can run this thing. I've watched The
Mm.
Matrix for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
And every time I see it,
See something new.
I see something else.
Yeah.
Why? Not because the movie is changing,
Right.
because I'm changing.
You're
Because
changing.
you're changing.
You're
Right.
elevating.
Yeah.
What people understand, being born again has nothing to do with dumping yourself into a bucket of water or an ocean. Being born again is all about raising your level of consciousness. And so every time that happens, you're born again, and you'll be born again multiple times in one lifetime.
Mhm.
You'll be able to look back on your previous level of consciousness from a higher state.
Mhm.
And that means you're growing and developing and you're
Mhm.
ascending. It's an ascension process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And a lot of people got lost in the symbolism of it. That was just symbolic. Same thing
Yes.
with the float tank. You get into a float tank naked
Yeah.
and you walk out like when it's over with, it's like, oh, I see the light. A light comes on at the end, and
Mhm.
guess what? You're born again. It's just
Exactly.
symbolism. But like you said, there's levels and layers to it. And so as we go further into the movie The Matrix, so first thing when you do wake up to
Mhm.
everything we talk about, you're going through cognitive dissonance right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Right.
Listening to this information because you have a programmed about what
Mhm.
what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And this is now going against it. When Morpheus took Neo back into the Matrix for the first time,
Mhm.
and really they just ran a program.
Yeah.
And he said, "This isn't real." He said, "Well, what is real?" In quantum theory, we've never even touched anything.
Exactly. You never touch anything. But the illusion of touching is really just that, a complete illusion of the matrix programming code, because what happens is when you try to touch something, the electrons orbiting the atoms in your hand will have an electromagnetic field around them. They repel the magnetic field, electromagnetic field of whatever you're trying to touch. So it's two repulsion forces is all that's happening. You
Mhm.
never actually touch anything.
Right.
And atoms are 99.999% empty
Empty,
space.
right? Yep.
Mhm.
So there's really nothing here. All we have are light waves, electromagnetic light waves that we can't see with the normal eye when they're in their phasic state. And we call it wave particle duality in quantum physics. And so when they're in a wave state, there are possibilities is all it is.
Right.
And then consciousness collapses those waves of possibilities into things that look like solid matter, but in true reality, there's really nothing here.
Yeah, and I started learning that early on, probably 2004, with the movie "What the Bleep Do We Know," and it bridged the gap between science and spirituality. And I just remember, like, what? Like, they were talking about when you walk out of a room, like that room collapses, doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and so that brought me on again. That was one of my first jumps in awakening. And again, when Morpheus had that experience with Neo, and Neo came out, and he threw up when he first came out of that first simulation of the Matrix. And the next morning, you saw Morpheus sitting next to Neo, and he said, "I gotta apologize to you."
Yeah.
He said, because we typically don't bring somebody past a certain age out of the Matrix. Why? Because their mind can't handle it.
Exactly.
There's people in your life that this type of message, don't try to send them you need to listen to this. If they haven't gravitated to it, they don't need to listen to anything.
Exactly.
It's for you. And I can jump a scene where he talked about when he was meeting up with the Oracle, and he came out and he said, Neo was about to tell Morpheus what happened. He said, man, whatever happened and whatever was said in there was for you.
Exactly.
These podcasts, if you're here seeking this out, this is for you.
Right.
Your mom, your dad, your sister, whoever. You want to run and try to get them on the same wavelength, and it don't work like that. You got to do your own work. So he apologized to him. And we see the older generation, the baby boomers, they have a hard time. They have a hard time integrating
it's really tough
the new
for them.
information.
You can easily bend the limbs, but when that tree gets deep rooted and grows, if you try to bend the limb, it'll break. And so you're looking at these baby boomers, and the coding and programming is so embedded in them for so many years that it's they've become rooted trees. They've grown and they've got stiff bark, and you can't really bend those limbs. They'll just snap. And a lot of them aren't ready for that information. So you have to just, when I tell people who always ask me, how do I get my family members to wake up, and how do I said, you just be the light. You just do what you do. Don't put pressure on them. Every now and then you may drop a gentle seed, and that's about it. And just let them look at your life and how you're moving. Eventually they may start to ask some questions. And then you can answer the question and walk away. Don't go too deep again. Just a little bit at baby steps, a little bit at a time. Some of them will come along, some of them may not. Just be happy that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're finding yourself. And then others will also see how you're moving and how you're living through this matrix. And then they will then begin to ask you questions. And some people will jump right on in with you full blown. Some people will take time. It's a gradual process, but like you said, you can't overdo it.
Everybody's in their own game.
Exactly.
That's
by
right.
example. Just lead by example. If it's not for you, it's not for you. If it's
right.
Like,
and you know them by their fruit.
Yes. Right. Right.
It's like, did we miss that message? Like, you know people by their fruit, meaning their actions show you who they are.
Exactly.
So that whole I'm woke because you. So here it is. Let's go back. I was about to go full into that, which is okay. You got the information. You got all this knowledge. Neo, when he went, he got into the chair, got the thing plugged into him, and he was sitting there for hours just downloading information, right? And he said, and he told Morpheus, I know Kung Fu. Morpheus said what? Show me.
Right.
Oh, you know. Show me.
Exactly.
It's the action that proves it.
So he went in that simulation again, showing me new Kung Fu. And what did Morpheus do? He whipped his ass.
Beat him down.
He beat him down. He's training him the whole way. Yeah, you learn some information, but you can't apply it.
Until you apply that information, it's not real. It's not in this realm. It doesn't exist. It just exists in your mind.
Yes.
Until you apply it.
Absolutely. That happens to me all the time. People come to